Gwen, I'll be ready in just a moment.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Gwen, it doesn't appear that Brian von Lossberg is here. Will you be taking care of this meeting?
I sure will.
Okay,
Yep.
wonderful. And I'm just trying to get the streaming set up for eScribe. I think the last meeting was not stopped, so it'll take me just a second to do that, and then we'll be ready to go.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for their patience. We are all ready to go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It is Wednesday, July 21st, and we are going to call Budget of the Committee of the Whole of the City of Missoula to order. We are still doing virtual meetings, but hopefully in the near future that changes. If you want to join the meeting to give public comment, you can go to the city's website, go to agendas, and find the link there to join. You can also always leave us a voicemail at 552-6012, and you can email us, council@ci.missoula.mt.us. So thanks, Lisa. Let's take that down. And if you can do a roll call, please, Lisa.
Sure thing. Stacy Anderson.
Present.
Mirta Becerra.
Present.
John Contos.
Here.
Heather Harp. Looks like Heather is out today. Jordan Hess.
Present.
Gwen Jones.
Present.
Julie Merritt.
Present.
Jesse Ramos.
Present.
Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Vasica.
Present.
And Brian Von Losberg is absent. And Heidi West. Looks like Heidi is out today. So that means we have nine members present, 3 members absent.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have minutes from July 14th, 2021 to approve. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved, and we will take public comment on items not on the agenda. Looks like we have no attendees, so we will move forward with the agenda. We're hearing a couple of different items today, but I would love to dispense with business first, which Lee had reminded me that we had a motion to set the public hearing in August. We will open the public hearing on August 16th, close it on August 23rd. I would love to get that motion on the floor so that we can vote on that, dispense with it, and then move on with the presentation. So given that, Ms. Vasica.
I will make the motion to hold a public hearing for the budget.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council regarding this? And I am unable to lower Ms. Vasica's hand. I don't know if I need to be made a host or not, Lisa. If you, but Ms. Anderson, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I did actually. So 3 years ago, we sort of found ourselves in a position where when we got the Department of Revenue numbers, we had some questions that we went back and asked for further clarification, and therefore it sort of delayed our process. So I know that when we set our budget meetings at the beginning of we set our committee meetings at the beginning of the year, we opted to have the last Monday of the August, which we would normally have off because it's the 5th Monday, to have it then. So I'm wondering what kind of flexibility we have in case we need to, have further questions and find out additional information if for some reason the Department of Revenue numbers that we get the first week, we have questions on or whatnot. So.
Right. So
The follow-up Lee has is that does this reflect how we are still I know that we're working with IT to come back in person at some point in the coming weeks, but if we aren't able to, does this also allow for our week extension if we're still virtual?
So I think that is all built. Well, as to the first question, I think that's built into the schedule, but Lee, did you have comments on that?
I did. I wanted to let folks know that that is built into the schedule, which I'll pull up and let folks see. As far as the question of flexibility, we need to pass the budget on the 23rd of August. That means we do need to adopt on that date. This is 21 days from the date that we receive taxable values. And so we're hoping that we can schedule enough time between that date and the final public hearing on the 23rd in order to get all of that information presented to City Council and have plenty of time for additional questions and follow-up and so forth. And the reason that we've chosen the 23rd is that we have to hit certain statutory deadlines. And that includes setting the road and park district assessments 1 week after we adopt the budget. So that is actually one of our statutory requirements. And then we need to submit all of our information to the state and the county by September 13th. And in that interim, we will be just working up all of the documentation in order to present it to them accurately.
Thanks. Did that answer your questions, Ms. Anderson?
Actually, it does, and I really appreciate that additional context. So.
All righty, thank you. Okay, Ms. Anderson, I'm having a blank moment here. Did you place that motion on the floor? Did you make the motion?
I did not, but I'm happy to make the motion to set no, Ms. Vasika said the motion.
I made the motion.
Okay, sorry. I'm ready to get back in person. I can't even retain my memory for 4 minutes on Zoom. Okay, thank you. Ms. Vasika, we have a motion on the floor. Thank you for making that. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'm calling for public comment on the motion. Seeing no one in attendance, we will take a roll call vote on the motion to set the public hearing. Whew, this is pretty hard here. Goodness.
Well, you and me both, Gwen. Would you mind making me a co-host, please? I made you the host when I tried to make you a co-host.
All right.
All right. So here we are, everybody, for our vote on that motion. Gwen Jones.
Yes.
Amber Sherrill.
Yes.
Julie Merritt.
Yes.
Heather Harp. Oh, she's absent. I'm sorry. Jesse Ramos.
Yes.
Sandra Vasika.
Yes.
Mirta Becerra.
Yes.
John Contos.
Yes.
Stacey Anderson.
Yes.
And Jordan Hess.
Yes.
So that's 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. And Lisa, remind me how to make you a co-host. And I would
If you click on where you're going to rename yourself, right click on your name on the participants list.
Oh, got it.
And
Goodness. All right, right click and
just and actually you need to right click on my name. I'm listed here as the administrator. Right click on that and just say make co-host.
okay, that makes sense.
Thank you so much, Gwen.
All right. Rename, whoops, rename.
And you can also just rest your cursor on it. You should get a little button also that says more.
I think, does that work now? Are you in?
See here. I should be, I think we can work from here. So we're good. Thanks a lot, Gwen. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so moving forward, Lee, did you want to introduce the items that we're hearing today?
Certainly. We only have 2 items, although that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a short agenda. We're going to begin with the police department presenting their new requests, and then we will close with an overview of the American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so Chief White, are you here to present for police today?
I am. How are you?
Good, thank you for coming. We're happy to have you.
Thanks, my pleasure to be here, and it's my honor to present this year's budget request to you. So let me share my screen so I can bring up. Can everyone see that? We good?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we will jump in. So oops, going too fast there. So first I want to cover some of the accomplishments we had from last year. The first being the staffing study completion and implementation. We were able to roll out that new schedule starting in February of 21. So we were able to get that done. We completed and published our first annual report that was made available to the public and gave a presentation to council regarding what we did in the year 2020. We increased our number of training hours for our officers. So for example, in fiscal year 2020, we had about 3,540 post accredited hours. And for the first half of fiscal year 21, we had 6,035 hours. So in half the year, we nearly doubled the amount of hours that we had the year prior. We received a grant from the federal government to help cover our PPE and additional expenses related to COVID-19 pandemic operations. We were able to purchase body-worn cameras and now have 100% deployment of body-worn cameras for our patrol officers, and we're able to upgrade all of our interview rooms so that we are all on one system. The locker room and security updates to our Catlin facility are currently underway and under construction. So we still have a few months left to get that finalized, but that has been started. And we also assisted globally with the fire department and us with the mobile response team and getting that launched and supporting those efforts last year. So I have 2 pages of key goals, and I don't want to go through these because I believe that's a separate presentation, but I just kind of want to hit the global goals. And these are informed by our strategic plan and that we're developing. And I'd love to come back before council at a different time to talk about that strategic plan and how we got to where we are. But I just want to highlight the global aspects of it. And you'll see this in our presentation once you have the printed version, but you'll see our first goal is to protect life and property. Our second goal is to enhance public trust. Our third goal is to enhance internal trust. And our fourth goal is to strengthen and modernize the department's response to emerging public safety trends. So those are the broad-based goals by which we inform the operations of the department and also inform the requests for our budget going forward. Talk about some expenditures from last year. You can see that at the end of the year for personnel, there's a remaining balance of $804,000, and that is a result of salary savings due to vacant positions. So we are allocated 116 officer positions within the police department. I currently have 4 vacancies, which takes us to 112. And within 3 weeks, we'll have an additional 2 openings. So by the end of August, we will be short 6 officers. I have slated for August 30th, initially the hiring of 4 new officers, trying to get additional academy slots to get all 6 hired, but we remain way deep in the list to get additional slots at the upcoming academy. You can see that our operating costs exceeded. Some of that I'll get into in our last request. A good portion of that is the lack of baseline adjustments to some of our ongoing obligations. Things just got more expensive in this last year. And without the increase in our baseline budget, we end up in a deficit situation. Balance in our grants. So despite the overage, there was still a return to city budget, an amount of $752,926 of cost savings from the department. Like I said, most of that's driven by vacancies within the department. So we'll jump into our new requests. So our first request is for 2 additional corporal positions. So these would be brand new FTEs to the department. When we implemented the new patrol schedule based on the staffing study, we expanded our patrol teams from 6 patrol teams to 8 patrol teams in order to provide additional coverage of officers and teams in the field. Each one of those teams is designed to have a sergeant, a corporal, and 5 officers. We made some internal adjustments with some of our sergeants without asking for additional resource in order to provide a supervisor for the 2 additional teams that were created in patrol, but that still leaves us 2 corporal positions short in order to have appropriate supervisory coverage for those 2 teams. So our ask is for 2 additional corporal positions because they serve as key first line supervisors for our personnel that are on patrol. The last time that the police department was given any FTEs for a first line supervisor was in 2012. Since 2012, the department has added 15 officers, 4 community service specialists. And additionally, when we get to request number 2, we're asking for reserve officers that will serve as bailiff court security, which would add an additional 3.25 FTEs to the department. So our supervisor to first line staff ratio is a little out of balance. And when you look particularly at our patrol division, 77% of our personnel that are on patrol have less than 5 years with the police department. 60% have less than 3 years in the police department. So it is critical for us to have a full complement of first line supervisors in order to provide for mentorship, coaching, guidance for our younger patrol officers. And also the problem that we run into on those 2 teams in particular is that if the sergeant is in training or gets a well-deserved vacation, then we either have to run that team without a supervisor or hire a supervisor on overtime in order to cover that. So we are respectfully asking for 2 FTEs at the rank of corporal. This item is not currently in the mayor's budget for consideration. I know that there could be future consideration for this, but I believe it's very important in an era where the public is asking us to be accountable, that we have first line supervisors in the field in order to provide that supervision, guidance, and mentorship to maintain that level of accountability. Request number 2 is the addition and creation of FTEs for a reserve officer bailiff program. So currently we service the municipal court with 1 full-time officer position that serves as the court bailiff. Last year, due to legislation that passed with the creation of the 3 elected judge positions and the additional legislation that went through that allows us to use paid reserve officers instead of full-time officers. Prior to that legislation, the law was very specific that the police department was required to provide a full-time police officer as the court's bailiff. This new legislation allows us to adjust it to paid reserves. So now with that opening, we have the ability to staff the court with reserve officers that are part-time versus using full-time officers. So full-time officers that have been through the academy, that have been through our FTO program, that are better served to be in the public in patrol functions within the department are being used for court security. Bailiffs and reserve officers are required to attend an 88-hour course. They will be post-certified, just not to the full extent of our regular police officers. With the addition of the courts, we may end up having to staff 3 bailiffs instead of just the single bailiff. And also we will use this reserve officer position to provide security for the upcoming in-person hybrid city council meetings that are scheduled in the future. So the request is for 5 part-time reserve officers, which is the equivalent of 3.25 FTEs. The cost covers the hourly wages and initial equipment for these positions. The city saves money based on the fact that we're not paying benefits, so they're not eligible for retirement benefits and the healthcare coverage and all those other things that go along with being a full-time employee. They would just receive the hourly wage of an initial first-year police officer. The reason that we need 7 is there is a cap on the number of hours that a part-time employee can work. So and that's 960 hours per year. So in order for us to truly have 3 full-time FTEs to service the courts and security at city council, then we need 7 bodies authorized to be able to do that based on the number of hours that they are allowed to work before they by default become full-time employees. This request is currently in the budget. Request number 3 is a replacement of the ballistic vests that are used as personal protective equipment for our special teams. Our current special teams vests expire this fall, and we need to replace them. These aren't the standard vests that we wear while on patrol. These are higher rated vests in order to stop rifle rounds and those types of things. So the request is to outfit the 21 expiring vests that we have for our special teams. This request is eligible for ARPA funding, and it is recommended in the budget currently that it be funded through ARPA. Electronic control weapons. This is our 4th request. I came before council a few weeks back to request permission to enter this contract prior to the end of the fiscal year in order to save us $39,000 overall. Council granted that. This is the request for the funding of that. As you can see that we're trying to purchase 65 new electronic control weapons to replace 14 that are 14 years or older and 18 that are over 10 years. And this would allow us to have full deployment of this intermediate force option for all of our officers in the field and also into our detectives tool belt, because we currently don't have the ability to do that. The other feature that is really great for us is it includes virtual reality training. So it provides interactive scenarios of de-escalation, crisis interventions, various tactics and whatnot. So that is a piece of this. The first year of the contract, it's a 5-year contract. The first year is just under $25,000. And the remaining years 2, 3, 4, and 5 is just under $71,000. The global ask for the value of the contract is a little over $307,000. The request is to fund the $25,000 up for this year, for this fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year. And that this contract and this device is eligible for ARPA funding. It is in the current budget and is recommended that ARPA dollars be used to fund this request. Request number 5 is an ask for 5 additional marked patrol vehicles and one marked motorcycle. So when we implemented the new patrol schedule, we went to having the ability to have 14 officers on duty at one time. That has caused us to run short on patrol vehicles. We currently have 27 patrol vehicles that are assigned to patrol. And you think to yourself, well, that 27 should cover 14. But on the average, we have 20% of our fleet offline for repairs or maintenance. So for example, today alone, there are 6 patrol cars that are not able to go into the field because of maintenance and or needed repairs. And then when you put on top of that, that we have 5 SROs, we have traffic officers that when they're not on their motorcycles need a car, our BID officers, our follow-up officers, all use these patrol vehicles that are assigned to patrol. And so we find ourselves sometimes in a situation where we end up having to double up officers for a short period of time, which kind of defeats the purpose of having an enhanced patrol schedule when we don't have the resources to get out there. So we're asking for 5 additional patrol vehicles to cover that. The motorcycle is a renewed request. We've, in the prior years, we have had 5 motorcycles for the 5 person traffic unit. It was taken out of the budget or wasn't replaced in 2019. We asked for it in 2020 as a replacement. We didn't get it. We still have a 5 person traffic unit and we only have 4 motorcycles. So renewing the request for the motorcycle. Currently, this request is not in our budget, and we'd respectfully ask that it be included in our budget so that we can make sure that we have the equipment we need in order to put our officers in the field. Request number 6. When we were looking at items for potential ARPA funding, one of the items that came up is a negotiations van. So our special teams negotiations vehicle at this point in time is a 1996 ambulance that was donated to the department. It is well beyond its serviceable life, and we spend a lot more time trying to keep it operational than actually being functional with it. So while this is not in our budget as proposed, this is something that had we had the ability to use some additional ARPA funding, that we would have been able to get this van. This van is used as the communications center for our negotiations team to negotiate with someone who may be barricaded and that type of thing. So it is a needed confined area where we can conduct those critical communication pieces when we have someone who's barricaded and we're trying to communicate with them for a peaceful surrender. Request number 7 is also one of those ARPA items that if we were pie in the sky, being able to get the full wish list, is a public safety mobile response unit. And you can see a rendition of what this is. And basically it serves as a mobile office for any emergency responses and investigations that are long-term, that allows us to get out of inclement weather, in the wintertime or summertime. It is a multi-function tool. It wouldn't just be for the police department. It would be for the fire department or any other emergency responders. And it allows for a place for us to have meetings, and it would have communications equipment. We would have office features in there, such as computers, connectivity, and that type of thing. So we're able to monitor and handle critical incidents or long-term investigations. This is not in the current budget request. And if we had a lot of ARPA money, then I would suggest that we get this. This item, we're going to continue to try to pursue grant funding and federal dollars to try to get, because it is something that we need in order to help us handle larger scale events. Request number 7, we are withdrawing. So we have one spectrometer, and what it's used for is testing suspected illegal drugs. And the great thing about this is that it can be done within the packaging, so our officers don't get exposed to illegal drugs and the potential hazards, particularly with fentanyl-laced drugs, getting exposed and having severe medical issues with that. Is this device allows us penetrate the packaging without exposing officers to it. We have one, we could use two, but with the transition of our TASER program from federal grant dollars into the ARPA dollars, that frees up our federal grant funding. So we will continue to pursue this outside of the budget request, because we now have the dollars from our federal grant in order to purchase this. Request number 9 is baseline increase. So as proposed, the current baseline increase only is half of what we need. So we asked for $74,000. It is funded at $37,000, but you can see over the past several fiscal years where our baseline increases have not been, haven't kept up with what we need. And these are hard costs of doing business. And you can see where we have fallen short over the past 4 years of being able to keep up with the actual hard costs of running the police department. So we would respectfully request the full funding of that $74,000. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks, Chief.
Let me figure
Before I
out.
go to the rest of council, I did have a quick question to start off with. I understand some of these are funded in the mayor's budget, some are not. But just as kind of a point of clarification on the negotiations van and the mobile response unit, I know you're fitting within a time frame here, so you have short time, but it seems like there's overlap on those two items, and is there enough overlap that ultimately could be combined into one vehicle, and then that's the strategy going forward, looking for funding, et cetera, or no?
They would have two separate applications, unfortunately. When someone is in constant communication with someone who's barricaded and they're trying to do those negotiations, there isn't a way to wall that off in those larger command post vehicles. So there would be a lot of interruption between the two different operations. One is more of a command post where you would have charts and graphs and computer video and the ability for us to have roundtable conversations about what we need to do as part of the incident command structure. And the other one is more operational with the van being used by the negotiations team in a quiet, controlled environment in constant communication with someone.
Great, thanks for that. I'm sure there's a much bigger conversation to have on all of these, but yeah, I appreciate you're giving it to us as best you can in a short time frame. Okay, I've got some questions from council, and I believe this meeting is scheduled to go to about 11:35. We can take a little bit of time from the next meeting because I've got the same clerk and the same person running it. We are supposed to cover ARPA funding today. I'm not sure if we're going to get to that. If we don't, we will kick that to next week and have an extended schedule next week. But back to questions, Ms. Merritt.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm wishing that we had scheduled more time on today for this because I have a number of questions, but I'll just ask the one that's most pressing on my mind. So Chief White, thanks for being here and giving us this presentation today. So one of the items was asking for the additional personnel for the corporal positions. What is, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, it seems like in the 4 years that I've been on council that the police department never has all of their positions filled, and that they always have a vacancy savings at the end of the year. And I'm sure that there are a lot of different factors involved with why those positions are not always filled. But it seems odd to me to be asking in another year when we still had vacancies to be asking for additional FTEs to be allocated. Is it possible that we can reallocate those existing FTEs to cover these positions that you need, because I do understand the need to have the supervisory level folks.
That would unfortunately come at the cost of having the ability to put officers into those key positions. So it would come at the reduction of an already overworked detective bureau that had an increase in cases. It would come at the cost of us having the ability to have a fully staffed traffic unit or our investigative officers that handle misdemeanor follow-ups, or potentially our SROs in school. So we would have to pull those bodies from some other piece of the organization. So it would degrade our ability to maintain the service levels in those other pieces of the organization. And yes, we do constantly run at a deficit, and that unfortunately is a result, quite honestly, of our ability or lack of ability to get officers into the academy because of the way that the academy classes are scheduled, their impact, and the numbers of officers that the academy can run. So we are always constantly running a little bit behind. We do get caught up here and there. So it's not that we are constantly running short on officers. We're just in a cycle right now where I do have some openings, and hopefully in August that'll all get remedied.
Thank you. Julie, did you have other questions or?
I think I'll make a list and send them by email.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much, Ms. Jones. I guess my question is in regards to the request for additional officers in the reserve bailiff program, and that the 7 part-time positions equal out to a total of 3.5 FTEs, but they're not the same cost as 3.5 FTEs because these 7 positions will not be full-time and therefore have the wraparound benefits package. I guess my question is the 7 part-time, okay, let me rephrase this. Does 3.5 FTEs cover the workload that's needed? Because I mean, I understand and I appreciate you trying to kind of figure out how to save some money, but yet I also think that in the same breath, we want to employ people and pay them a living wage and provide benefits and be like the example that we want other businesses to follow in our community, and we lead in that way. And so, you know, what is the difference in terms of price for the benefits package for those 3.5 FTEs? And would it make sense, and would it be enough of the workload to bring on full-time folks? Understanding that that would be a little bit more money, but you know, I think that that's worth having a discussion about. You know, our budget is a reflection of our values. And
sure, the cost savings would represent a little over $100,000 when we were looking at it for 5. So to go to 7, we're probably looking at in benefits in the $150,000 to $160,000 range. The issue is once again allocation of resources. Those positions are better served by part-time employees versus a full-time employee. I would rather have fully certified police officers based on our investment in them, the cost to train them, have them in the field providing full police services versus someone that we can make sure it does provide adequate security, that is a certified, post-certified peace officer in the limited capacity of providing services directly to the courts. The other issue is we are trying to, it's twofold with the reserves. It is a gateway for a lot of the officers or reserve officers that we are in the process of going through backgrounds in anticipation of being able being able to hire. They are all folks that would like to become full-time peace officers. I would say the vast majority of them, but there are also people in there that just want to serve their community in a limited capacity. We have people that are in private industry that would like to serve the community as a reserve officer, but want to maintain their full-time job doing that. So we actually have several of those candidates as well. So I think it does a couple things. It gives people an avenue that have full-time careers somewhere else that want to be public servants to do so. It gives us an opportunity to have another recruitment tool to bring in additional officers and get them some initial training. They can see if they enjoy the police department and if they're a good, solid fit for us. And as positions become available that are full-time, that they can transition into those roles a little bit more seamlessly and be able to make it through training and their FTO a little bit easier. And to the initial question, yes, the number of hours and FTEs would adequately cover our need.
Great. Thanks so much for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We have Ms. Cheryl.
Thanks. I just have a quick question. I'm Chief White, I missed whether you said with request number 3 and number 4, if those were already reflected in the proposed budget.
So number 3, yes, is in the current budget, and number 4 is in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Chief White while we've got him here? And the hands went up. Ms. Merritt.
Sorry, my question's not for Chief White, but is maybe for Lee, or I'm wondering if it's possible. I know you guys are all working really hard on this budget stuff. Is it possible to get the items updated on the website a little bit ahead of time? Like, we didn't have a chance to review any of the chief's requests here before this meeting today. And I mean, just a little bit of time to get familiar with those. Sometimes it's hard to process it. Like last week, the fire department had a lot, and it was really hard to process it all in the short time that they had to present it to us.
And do.
Great. And I had looked at the preliminary requests. They're simply line items, but it's what was gone through today. But then the slides, of course, have a lot more information to fill in the background there. But yep, ongoing process. Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thanks. Just super quick, since we have the chief here, if I saw the email this morning about National Night Out, and if you wouldn't mind, and if the chair will allow, just kind of quickly, telling us what that is and making an announcement about it so folks can participate.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So there's a national organization that has, for the last 38 years, done a National Night Out. And it is a community relations building outreach effort done across the nation on the same night across all 50 states. Should you be participating in it, it's a way for the community to get out, meet police officers. It's an opportunity for us to engage with the public in a more positive manner. And so we wanted to do it last year, but due to the restrictions, we weren't able to. So for the first year, we are going to do a National Night Out event here in Missoula. And it is scheduled for August 3rd from 5 to 8 p.m. It will be here at our police station here at City Hall. So what we're going to be doing is bringing in resources. So if people want to look inside a patrol car, if they want to look at a motorcycle, if they want to sit in a patrol car, we'll be bringing some of our special teams items. We've been working with some local businesses through BID to also be around. We'll be providing some crime prevention tips, and we're working on getting some of our child safety seat certified installers to be able to, if someone's got questions about getting their car seats checked, we can do that. So just an opportunity to come out, be with us, ask questions, and give us an opportunity to engage with the public. And look for it on our website and our social media if you want more details.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you calling attention to that. And I see no other questions, and there's no one in the audience to give public comment on this. Chief White wanted to thank you for your time and all of the information today, and stay safe out there. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. I can give 10 minutes to ARPA presentation. Lee and Dale, I'm not sure who's going to speak to that. I'm not sure how long you need, but do you want to give it a shot?
Sure thing. I'll try to roll through it, and we can also follow up with questions in our next budget committee of the whole meeting next Wednesday.
Great. Thank you.
This so everybody can see the screen. So the American Rescue Plan Act, this is simply an informational item to bring to City Council, but it will affect quite a few of the budget decisions that we review in these coming weeks. This act is a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus bill that has multiple components to it. Two primary ones that affected the city of Missoula are the allocations through states, which across the country is over $195 million, and through metropolitan cities, which are cities that are over 50,000 people and have a CDBG designation, and that includes the city of Missoula. So we received one pool of funding that's directly from the Treasury, and that's the component under metropolitan cities, but there are other funding sources for us to explore. So regardless of funding source, or funding pool, there is of course a list of eligibility. What can we actually spend these funds on? And the Treasury guidance so far is somewhat broad, and we expect them to actually hone in on more specifics over the coming months. But to date, we understand that we can spend these on public health expenditures. For example, public health and safety staff is something that we spent quite a bit of CARES funding on. Negative economic impacts. Replacing lost public sector revenue. This is an ongoing calculation that we are doing as we continue to receive information on tax receipts. We know that we lost some revenue in our parks programs, for example. Those are just two places. Provide premium pay for essential workers. Invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure to improve access to clean drinking water, support vital wastewater and stormwater infrastructure, and expand access to broadband. But again, within these overall categories, we have broad flexibility to decide how best to use this funding to meet the needs of our community. The funds must be fully appropriated. That means we must determine the budget by December 31st, 2024, and fully expended by December 31st, 2026. So the state passed two bills that encompass quite a few other pools of funding for various programs. These are HB 632 and SB 297. HB 632 covers these six broad categories: water and sewer, communications, economic transformation, stabilization and workforce development, health and human services, housing and rental assistance, and funding for schools. The water and sewer ARPA allocation through the state comes in two types. The first is a competitive grant program that requires a certain amount of match. So folks in our public works department have been busy working on their grant applications. This is very similar to the state revolving fund applications that we've done before, and the state DEQ has been helpful in shepherding municipalities through that. There's also minimum allocation grant, which does also require a certain amount of match, and we are estimated to receive $10 million for water, sewer, and stormwater projects through that. Housing and rental assistance programs. This is direct allocations from the state to households, landlords, and so forth. Health and human services is similar, but under Health and Human Services, there are also some childcare grant that our Parks Department, for example, is looking into for a lot of the programs that they have implemented since last summer. Economic transformation, stabilization, and workforce development. There's a committee, each one of these respective areas has a committee appointed by the governor to determine exactly how to allocate these funds. We are still waiting to hear specific information from this committee and hoping that there might be some additional funding for housing. Communications encompasses broadband, and this is still sort of an open question for us right now, but our understanding is that what they're really trying to focus on here are what they consider frontier, unserved, and underserved communities. And that is my quick overview of the American Rescue Plan Act.
That was billions of dollars in just a few seconds. Lovely. Okay, great. Thank you, Lee. Lots of information there, and I will let Brian know that when he runs BCOW next week, if after people have had a chance to chew on this, there are further questions, I think that would be great, because we are a little bit short on time. Lots of different categories that this applies to within our budget, just a question of using it to have the most impact and be the most strategic. And I think you're still parsing through it, is my understanding.
That is true.
Great. Dale, did you want to add any comments? We still got a few minutes.
So one thing that the mayor put together was some guiding principles that are helping guide our decision-making related to ARPA. And let me throw those on the screen really quick, if I can do that with. And I just wanted to show, and this provides some examples of, as you look at what the mayor has funded in his budget related to requests like you saw in Chief White's budget. These principles are guiding those decisions. And these are based on also principles in both the ARPA Act and in guidance that was issued by the National League of Cities. And ARPA, Lee described how it's very broad, but but also within that they provided guidance that wasn't that was to incentivize examples are like incentivize spending in low income census tracts and those types of things that aren't required, but they specifically talk in the act about incentivizing those things. So, but we took a lot of those principles and put them into these guiding principles. And so this is how we are approaching this. And first, city government must be sustainable and prepared for new emergencies to ensure the community thrives in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. And so that is, making sure that city government moving forward is financially sustainable as we move forward in the pandemic. People come first in every investment we make, whether it's sustaining local government, maintaining, improving, or building new infrastructure to serve residents and visitors, supporting middle class and low income Missoulians, providing assistance to small business, and addressing pressing challenges of the post-pandemic environment. So you will see that we are in some of these recommendations, particularly when we get to the Operation Safe Shelter aspects of the budget, where we are really trying to be people-centric related to this. Communications. Right now you'll see it's a little bit scattered on where the ARPA funding is, and it's also it's also hard in the context until we know our tax numbers, but we will specifically identify in an aggregate place where our ARPA fundings are going. And we will seek opportunities to combine existing resources. So we are working in close partnership with Missoula County, for example, on ARPA funds, particularly as it relates to Operation Safe Shelter. And we are, that's a great partnership. And so we're going to stretch these dollars as far as we can. We're working together. So I just wanted to highlight those principles. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. And what you were just finishing saying, I think something to emphasize throughout this whole pandemic has been the collaboration between local government and local institutions. And we're lucky to have that in Missoula, because it really does provide a better product in the long run than if we were at odds. So So thanks for mentioning that. And thanks for these principles and vision here. This sounds great. Are there any questions from council regarding any of this? Okay, I am not seeing any questions. I'm not seeing anyone attending to give public comment. And I need to get the next committee meeting started in a few minutes. So thank you, Dale and Lee. I appreciate you guys handling this in 10 minutes. If there are follow-up questions next week, I'll have Brian carve out a little bit of time to address that. But you know, it's really good stuff. So thank you so much. All right, thank you. And VCAL will be adjourned.